No, this is about doing what you can with what you have. Because so often, even as little kids, we say, you know what, when I grow up, when I get my first job, when I retire, when what? When are we going to do something with what we have today, right now? When is that going to happen? That is what Garth Callahan might ask you. I will sometimes receive thousands of messages from absolute strangers around the world about their promises. And to be quite honest, it is not so easy to emotionally take. Because it isn't first a story that I see on the news or on social media. The message says, "Dear Mr. Sheen, hi Alex, can you help me?" And I cannot. For I am only one man. And I don't even know if I was supposed to be the so-called leader of Because I Said I Would. You have to understand that before all this happened, before I ever clicked that button, before I ever made that post, I was just some guy. I worked at a software company. Fortune magazine, 100 top places to work for in the United States. I made a 6-figure income, 5-figure bonuses, 5-figure stock options. Everything that my father came to the United States for himself, I had. But you get messages from people like Garth, that Napkin Notes dad, you look me in the eye and tell me that this life is about money. It is not. And so I thought maybe I should leave my job, but it didn't make much sense because I was making all this money at the software company, and then I was spending tens of thousands of dollars of my paycheck on stamps and paper to fulfill a promise to send these cards out. So it didn't make much sense to leave my job because it was paying for it all. There's not donations coming in at this time. And so emotionally, though, I'd be pushed over the edge one day by a letter that'd be written and dropped to my desk, actually at work. And I'd like to read part of that letter to you now. It was anonymous, meaning I don't know who it came from. It had no name on it but my own, and it read, "Hi Alex, I've been keeping up with your blog. Because I Said I Would has really, really helped me through a rough patch. There have been lots of times where I didn't think life was worth living, and I almost took my life. Almost. I'm getting stronger every day, and a lot of that strength comes from a few promise cards I've written. I have lots of people who care about me. I'm a very, very lucky person. It took a lot for me to realize that I should be alive. I do have a purpose. I'm not sure if I would even be around if it wasn't for you and your organization. So thanks, Mr. Sheen. I know I'm supposed to write this on a promise card, but I want to promise you that I will not give up. I'm not embarrassed today, nor will I ever be, to say I sat at my desk so long ago, sitting at work. I read this letter and I cried, thinking about what my father might say about a letter like this. I stood up and I looked around the sea of people. I wondered, who is it? Is it a person that I know, or is it just a random stranger? I mean, 1,400 employees, you can't know them all. More importantly, this letter gave me the courage to do what I knew already had to be done. And that was to leave that life of comfort, to go alone, and help people in what little ways I know how. So I asked for a meeting with my boss. Just through email, she didn't know what the meeting was about. And she agreed to it, though, so I remember walking into her office that day. You know, she's sitting at her desk, you know, I have this letter in hand. She's sitting there, you know, pretending to work or whatever bosses do all the time, you know, Facebook or I don't know. Anyways. She's sitting there, and I say, "Hey, boss, I don't mean to bother you too much, but if you could just read this letter, it'd make it easier for me to do what I got to do." And she says, "Sure, Alex, that sounds good." She unfolds this piece of notebook paper, and she reads as much as I've just read to you now. But then she stops. She looks up at me, and she says, "Alex, this letter is from my daughter. This is her handwriting. This is about her. That envelope you're holding, those are the kind of envelopes we have back at home." You see, I didn't know this, but her daughter had been suffering through depression. And maybe with help and with time, it gets better, but at age 14, she didn't know that. And as an unhealthy emotional release, she began to cut herself. But she would know about promise cards long before the world. With her family, she would make these small promises to get better. One step at a time. Maybe it's not quit forever. Maybe that's too hard. How about just not today? Not this week. She would end that habit. She would ask an older student to drive her to the place where I worked, where her parents worked. She would drop this off in inter-office mail. It would get to my desk. And that is part of the reason I'm standing in front of you now. I'm all in.